Well, good evening, America. This is Q News Tonight, the world's first live daily gay evening news show, and it's 7 p.m. on Thursday, January 23rd, 2020. Q News Tonight is live and unscripted, so anything can happen, and we are in the midst of the impeachment trial of President Donald Trump. At Q News Tonight, we don't edit the news, and we thank you for joining us tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and these are my co-anchors, Aaron Darr and Napoleon Plays. Good evening, gentlemen, and let's jump right into the news. First, we begin with breaking Q News Now. As everyone knows, worldwide, we're watching a health crisis in our breaking Q News about a dangerous China virus coming to America. We've prepared this package for you. Watch this.
The first case of the deadly Chinese coronavirus making its way to the U.S., a Washington state man testing positive for the deadly virus. According to the CDC, the man in his 30s flew home to Seattle last Wednesday, infected, but not yet symptomatic. According to officials, shortly after arriving in Seattle, he began feeling ill and reached out to his healthcare provider on Sunday. 24 hours later, his diagnosis was confirmed by the CDC.
That's right. This is the coronavirus. There have been 18 reported dead and over 600 infected in just the past few days. This is spread across the world and across Asia, obviously, in the correspondence that we have seen from this video. This is the Wuhan in China. 11 million people have been in lockdown in that city, and the Chinese New Year has actually been canceled in Beijing because of this virus. As we have reported, the World Health Organization has been convening today to determine if this is actually a public crisis or what needs to happen moving forward. We hope that this is not going to be an epidemic, and we will stay tuned to see what happens from their understanding of how this is going to be spread and how many people might be able to contract this.
You know, it seems to me we break Q News Tonight with this worldwide potential health crisis. It is affected Seattle for sure. I'm curious, Aaron, do you think that the LGBT community is paying attention to this health crisis in any way? Is your impression that we are or are not?
Well, as it pertains to this particular virus, I think that it's something that we're just learning here in America. Obviously, they're dealing with it over in China, but should it continue to develop and others become infected in the United States, I think it's going to be something that not just the LGBTQ community pays attention to, but it's going to be a crisis for us all.
We're going to watch closely because this is a major news that may be overshadowed with what's going on in the United States, but certainly very serious. We continue in Breaking Q News tonight by telling you an update on impeachment, and we call it Impeachment Catch-Up. And Aaron, tell us about the day of day 3.
Yes, so the Senate trial of President Donald Trump continues today. House managers continue to do a wide overview of the case and the statement of facts as it pertains to an alleged Ukrainian phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Donald Trump, where he allegedly asked the Ukrainian president to investigate his 2020 presidential rival, his potential opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden. Democrats are continuing to ask for witnesses with their GOP counterparts. Don't particularly see that happening, but very important to note that a lot of senators on both sides, and mind you, this is a trial. This is a trial. Senators on both sides of the aisle are saying that they already have their minds made up, as they are supposed to be nonpartisan in this trial, listen to the evidence, listen to the statement of facts as it pertains to the overall case, and then make up their minds. But just yesterday even, we saw over 21 Republican senators walk out of the room during testimony by House managers. So unfortunately, it's showing that this country is continuously divided by this administration and politics.
What did you make of Rand Paul's announcement today that 45 Republican senators were just ready to vote already?
Well, I think that is something that we probably could say about both sides, Democrats and Republicans. I think that this has shown itself to be partisan in the United States Senate. Of course, it was partisan in the U.S. Congress, but the fabric of the overall case is not partisan. It's about abuse power.
Napoleon, I'm curious, we're just in day 3. Do you think the LGBT community, I continue to ask, are we paying attention to impeachment?
Unfortunately, I don't think that we are paying attention. I am speaking anecdotally, but of course I feel that a lot of our community is in the same boat that I am. We don't believe that the government will actually demonstrate what we want them to demonstrate. We don't believe that they will actually uphold the democratic values. As Aaron just said, a lot of the senators aren't even paying attention to the trial going on, which is unacceptable in a criminal jury, and it should be unacceptable in an impeachment jury, even if the senators cannot be removed. And so what I think a lot of the LGBTQ community is feeling is a sense of dismay, because we have absolutely no power in this, and the Republican Party and maybe even the Democratic Party have already determined what they want to do, and they are not listening to the evidence.
Well, we have America and the world. We've covered impeachment every night. We're completing our 3rd week of Q News tonight, and it's been breaking Q News every night, and I imagine it will continue to be. Before we move into our next news blocks, let me tell you that we're coming from the World AIDS Museum in the heart of Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We affectionately say, Aaron always makes fun of me, the gayest place on planet Earth, and the table certainly represents that. And we're coming to you from the World AIDS Museum and Educational Center on Wilton Drive. We also are coming from our new set here right in the middle of the World AIDS Museum, and this set has been assisted and designed by Concepto Modern Living, and we thank them. We are now going to move into queuing up world news, and there is a big story in the news. Pakistan has given free health care to trans in this major Muslim country. An interesting story. And Napoleon, tell us about what's happening.
That's right. The Pakistani government has given free health care to all trans people. And this comes out of the idea from Prime Minister Imran Khan that the government insurance should cover all poor people, which covers people who make less than $2 a day or $4,700 a year in terms of our equation of what that means in US dollars. And so what we're seeing here is that trans people in Pakistan are given actually more rights and more freedom in terms of healthcare than just standard people, much less trans people here in the US community. Of course, there are people that are homosexual in Pakistan, and that is still illegal. And so there is this juxtaposition in our LGBTQ community as to what that means. If trans people are given free healthcare, which is incredible, or relatively so, versus the rest of the LGBTQ community, which is actually going to be tried and put to death potentially if they are found to be LGBTQ, or rather gay.
Aaron, do you think that there are any effects of Pakistan, a major Muslim country, having effects on a more liberal outlook on trans in other Muslim region countries? Or do
Perhaps in Western countries like the United States. You know, this legislative session, a lot of states all over the country just started implementing through various committees anti-LGBT legislation. So I'm happy to see this to a certain extent, but I also wonder to myself that could this not just be used as a tool of oppression to gather individuals who happen to be transgender to seek those services and then out themselves in the process, and then be either imprisoned or what have you in Pakistan just for being trans.
I understand that point of view, especially as a Jew in history, but what I want to make sure that's clear to society that's watching us today in the world, in 2009 it was actually made clear by the Pakistani government that all people, including trans people, would be treated equally. So that might be true what you just described, but it has been over 10 years where they have given equal healthcare rights and equal rights to the trans community in Pakistan versus the rest of the world, which does not do that.
So the story news here is that it has moved from allowing them access to it being free access.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Now I understand. We move out of our world news into what we call queuing up the USA. Interesting America and the world. I have to tell you that we kind of joke that we're getting ready to do a block called Utah Night because we're going to report a lot of stories coming from Utah that are breaking in our Queuing Up the USA. This is very important because Utah is the home of the Mormon Church. They were involved in the California marriage initiative reversal and have been involved in gay conversion and all kinds of other issues. But a lot of news going on in Utah tonight. Our first story is about Utah banning gay conversion therapy. It is just passed. We've prepared this package for you. Watch this.
Utah is now the 19th state to ban so-called conversion therapy on LGBTQ children. The new rule went into effect Tuesday. The rule prohibits psychologists and therapists from attempting to change the sexual orientation or gender identity of a minor. Governor Gary Herbert said, "I have learned much through this process. The stories of youth who have endured these so-called therapies are heartrending, and I'm grateful that we have found a way forward that will ban conversion therapy forever in our state."
It's a great news out of the state of Utah. It's a bipartisan initiative in Utah that has the support of both Democrats and Republicans. The bill in question to actually ban and overturn any kind of practices of conversion therapy, ironically, was sponsored by a state legislator who was a Republican. And I applaud him, and his name was Representative Craig Hall. And also very supportive of this initiative has been the Republican Governor Gary Herbert. So to make clear, the main objective of banning conversion therapy in terms of this legislation, quote, was to prohibit dangerous practices while protecting healthcare professionals, unquote. So I think it's a wonderful step in the right direction, and I hope that we will continue to have this conversation as the year goes forward.
Well, of course, it's big news because we're happy it's the 19th state, but it's Utah.
It's Utah, the Mormon Church.
Right. The Church of Scientology is very powerful in the state politically. And that's the news here. We continue on in Queuing Up the USA, talking about a bit of history takes place and the Miss USA pageant. Miss Utah has become and made history of being the first openly bisexual competitor at the Miss USA pageant. Napoleon, tell us about this story.
That's right. We continue with Utah tonight, making headway across the entire United States. After 5 years of competing, the new Miss Utah, Rachel Slauson is her name, by the way, she realizes she's enough, which is an important statement, especially in the LGBTQ community. She has been diagnosed as being bipolar, and this was after a suicide attempt after one of her previous losses in the last 5 years, which is, she's only 19 years old. That is a tremendous growth period just in those few years. She is the first openly bi woman to compete in the Miss USA, and one of her statements was that we came here to love. Being queer is not a platform, and I appreciate that sentiment because she acknowledges who she is and the growth that she has to endeavor while still stating that that is not who she is entirely. So we appreciate that from the entire LGBT.
I think the history of the news here, of course, is our Utah night that we're talking about, that the first Miss USA contestant that represents the LGBTQ community is from the state of Utah. That is fascinating to me. So therefore,
the first
news.
Bisexual woman in Miss USA.
Yes, but right, exactly. But representing our community also. We continue in our Utah block tonight in USA, Queuing Up the USA, by going to Brigham Young University, which is owned by the Mormon Church. Brigham Young is announced that it is going to allow same-sex couples in a dance competition on the campus of Brigham Young. Aaron, tell us about that story.
So the Brigham Young, this university that happens to be a conservative university in the state of Utah, which is very much so associated with the Mormon Church, is going to be allowing the dance competition that is going to be hosted by the United States National Amateur Dance Sport Championship to allow same-sex couples to ballroom dance. This is interesting because it's an annual tradition. It's been a tradition for the last 20 years associated with this university, and recently the board of directors of the dance championship have decided that they would allow same-sex couples to dance, which this is going to be very impactful because there are over 3,000 couples that participate in this annually. So it will be wonderful to see the equality and the inclusion across the board.
Interesting is, do you think this decision at Brigham Young was a financial one or a political one, or what do you think was behind this?
Well, this actually goes against school policy for the university. So unfortunately for the university, I don't think that they had much of a choice in this. This was actually the decision by the board associated with the dance competition. So you know, if they want to continue to do this, I guess this would be good business on their part for any kind of.
So you do believe it was a financial decision?
I do believe it was a financial decision.
Interesting.
That does make complete sense, but historically, partner dancing of any variety, of any genre, has been a almost dancing, a mating ritual between partners. So their acceptance of same-sex couples in this capacity almost is the comparison to same-sex couples as just a sexualized or romantic couple. They are slowly starting to accept people who are of same sex.
In terms of me understanding what you just said, in the Mormon Church, dance is almost a mating ritual.
Well, not in the Mormon Church specifically. Partner dance historically among all cultures, and that is reflected in the Mormon culture as well. And so what we're seeing here is a slow acceptance of the generalization of LGBTQ couples together, which is why this is a story that we're reporting tonight, because it is impactful to us as a whole.
I'm curious to your observation, either one of you, when is the last time you actually couple danced? I'm not talking about on a disco dance floor or a pop dance floor. When's the last time either one of you danced with another male couple?
Male? Well,
a couple?
Yeah, well,
just as a couple?
Yeah. Has it been recently, in the last month? Have either one of you done that?
My partner and I, it's funny, I cook a lot at home and I'll play classical piano music, and I was cooking just last night and playing classical music in the background, and he and I were just playfully dancing around the house.
Oh, wonderful. That's what
pretty gay. And the gayest place on planet Earth.
I understand that. I've made a concerted effort in my time here to learn more of partnered dancing. I have a background in dance, and so to understand more of how to move with a person has taught me more about how to read people and how to interact with them.
But I didn't hear
well.
an answer.
Yes, in the past month I have.
You have?
Yes, I've actually gotten very into swing dancing.
Okay, all right.
It's funner with Pinot Noir. Just saying.
Yes, and my favorite one.
All right, band.
Let's move into our last topic on queuing up the USA, and we move to Indiana. Utah to Indiana. There's some correlation between the two. Indiana had a suit that went to the courts, and Indiana loses over an LGBT discrimination law. Napoleon, tell us about what's happening in Indiana.
That's right. Moving all the way from Utah to Indiana, we're seeing our Midwestern states really stand up for the LGBTQ community and human rights as a whole. The federal court in Indiana has ruled that Indiana, that same-sex couples must be treated the same as opposite-sex couples, meaning that in birth reports, if there is a couple that is of the same sex, of the same gender, that both parents must be listed as the actual parents. In the past, since 2015, when these court rulings have been stated for over 5 years, this has been in the process of the courts. There have been couples that have been reported that have had to adopt their own children, either by surrogacy or by a sperm donor or by whatever other means. And so what we're seeing here is actual human awareness and human acceptance for the fact that people that are determined to create a child and to have a family are being given the access to legally be the parents, which was not the case 5 years ago.
It's fascinating to me on Indiana losing this case in the federal courts. Aaron, you being our political expert at the table, how did Vice President Pence respond to this news, do you think?
Well, you know, obviously, I mean, it's no secret here at this table, and I'm sure for many people around the world, knowing that Vice President Pence is not a friend to the LGBTQ community. So with that being said, I'm sure this was disheartening to him. But nevertheless, I'm glad that the federal court can continue to uphold the ideals of our founding fathers and the Constitution.
Absolutely. All right, so we move out of queuing up the USA, and we move into something that normally would be a little lighter for us, but not tonight. We queue up travel. And we are reporting tonight the Atlantis Cruise, the very famous gay cruise, is going on. And we are sad to report that someone has jumped from the Atlantis Cruise to their death. Aaron, tell us a little bit about what's happening
this story is really ongoing and developing as we speak. So a 46-year-old man from Naples is actually found dead after going overboard of Royal Caribbean's cruise line, a ship, the Oasis of the Seas, which is a gay-themed cruise. And throughout this investigation thus far, they're not releasing much other than the cruise ship itself saying that they do have footage of the man in question, who continues to be unidentified, showing that he actually jumped from the ship.
Have either one of you been on a cruise? Gay cruise, I mean?
Not a specifically gay cruise, and the Atlantis Cruise is a particular one of note because it departs just from right here where we're located in Fort Lauderdale. I know you've been on it before.
Yeah, I have. This ship departs maybe 10 miles from our studio location. Sad news. Sad news for the family of this guest, and we reported in Queuing Up Travel. We move into Queuing Up Business, and Queuing Up Business is an important component of Q News tonight because we do focus on LGBT related business issues. And tonight we report about what's going on with our friends at Chick-fil-A and in Texas, and an airport location of Chick-fil-A that is fighting to open and operate is costing the city there a tremendous amount of money. Napoleon, tell us about this story.
We have the Save Chick-fil-A bill, which was presented right over there in San Antonio, Texas. This is a bill that is meant to keep discrimination in terms of religious beliefs from the government in Texas, regardless of religious or political beliefs. This is supposed to separate any business from being persecuted for what those beliefs are. The Republican Party has stated that they will overturn the city councilor by any means necessary over the ban on Chick-fil-A in the airport that they have in San Antonio. The Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, has said that he has opened an investigation into this religious discrimination. So we will see what happens moving forward, and the Republican governor, Greg Abbott, has also signed legislation while he was surrounded physically by Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
I asked last night, both of you, we reported at Q News tonight, last night, that the final Chick-fil-A has closed in the United Kingdom. And what's the difference in attitude of protest in the United Kingdom versus the United States? And clearly it's called Texas. It seems like it's Texas. All right, we're going to queue up out of business. Thank you for laughing.
Wow.
We're going to queue up Vote 2020 and the politics of what's going on. A fascinating new commercial is running in many, many states as an ad for Vice President Pence running for president. Before we talk about that, watch this.
Mike Pence doesn't brag about sexually assaulting women.
Grab him by the I can do anything.
Mike Pence doesn't pressure foreign governments into investigating his political rivals.
Ukraine should start an investigation into the Biden.
Mike Pence doesn't mock and make fun of people with handicaps.
You got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said.
Donald Trump is being impeached. It's time for President Pence. At least it's an improvement.
An improvement for who? So MikePence.com is pretty satirical. They go on to state, quote, Mike Pence is a bland, boring, completely typical, ordinary conservative Republican from Indiana. And if the Senate does its due diligence and its duty, they'll make him the next president of the United States of America. You know, be careful what you wish for, because Donald Trump might be interesting, to say the least, and some of us watching tonight perhaps might not agree with everything that he does. But as far as it goes to the LGBTQ community, I think that Mike Pence would be absolutely disastrous for our community.
This commercial launched yesterday in, I believe, 23 states. But the people behind this, while we kind of tongue-in-cheek joke about President Pence, he's an improvement. This is a serious commercial, and it's a serious platform that is brought by many serious conservatives in the United States.
That's exactly my question. Have either of you ever experienced, to your recollection, or even just from studying history, an observation of where a vice president was campaigning to be president while the president was in office in this capacity?
Well, let's be fair. Obviously, Mike Pence isn't associated with this commercial at all. If he were, I think that he probably would be like the rest of the cast of Survivor of the Trump administration. You know, see who lasts the longest. But you know, I mean, it's an interesting take on it. It is somewhat satirical, but I also think it points out the crisis that our nation is in right now under the Trump administration.
Absolutely. We continue in Vote 2020 and queuing it up by Mr. Kellyanne Conway. Yes, I said that correctly. Mr. Kellyanne Conway ripping the GOP this week over impeachment. We've prepared his remarks. Watch this.
How do you feel when you see the Republican Party going against these basic rules that you consider to be important?
I'm deeply saddened. It's very upsetting. And this is a moment, I think, of reckoning, not just for the country and for the rule of law and for the Constitution. It's a very specific day of reckoning for the Republican senators who took this oath and the Republican Party generally. Are they going to stand for lies instead of truth? Are they going to stand for gaslighting instead of reality? Are they going to just do the bidding of this one man and put his interests over those of the country? That's what this is about.
They're treating the Senate like they're morons. That is a direct quotation from Mr. Kellyanne Conway, as we've described, George Conway. Now, we've seen on Samantha Bee, we've seen in media the fact that Kellyanne Conway and her husband, as we've seen on TV, may be at disagreement in terms of how they present their cases and actually being publicly in opposing views. But what we see here is that George Conway has outright stated and very publicly that the dissembling and distorting and even lying of the current administration has caused a division within our current populace of the American community. What we're seeing here is a lot of the representation of what's going on in our country is division as well as frustration with what is going on in the actual White House.
You know, that quote about division in the community, I can't help but kind of smile in my head. It's not division in the community, it's division in their house and division in their bedroom. It is so starkly different. His call out there could have been directly at his wife. I'm curious, our political expert, what do you think about this?
You know, I'm glad to hear his comments. You know, this isn't the first time, obviously, that George has made comments. But I think it's particularly interesting, and why are we talking about it in the first place? We're talking about it in the first place because his wife happens to serve in the Trump administration, and she took over as campaign manager for the 2016 campaign. To what aspect she'll be involved in 2020, you know, who knows? Again, it's a cast of Survivor, so any day now, Kellyanne Conway.
She's been a recurring one for 4 years
and
now.
She's
survived for the entire duration.
She is surviving. She will survive. But you know, again, the broader
Gloria Gaynor is singing.
The Gloria Gaynor is singing in your head right now. But the broader picture of this is, what was he really saying? And he was saying it in a very nonpartisan manner, that this is about rule of law, that what's going on right now is going to set a precedent of what future administrations, both Democrats and Republicans, can do in the future, what they can get away with, what they can't get away with. So this needs to be done in a manner, in terms of this trial and ongoing impeachment, in a way that upholds and uplifts our democracy and the Constitution of the United States.
Interesting. All right, we're going to move out of our Vote 2020 segment. Of course, we're going to cover the election of our lifetime, November 3rd, 2020, all through the year on Q News Tonight. We move into our next segment called Q Up Entertainment. A little lighter and a hell of a lot more fun, and that is breaking news in entertainment. RuPaul's Drag Race Season 12, the queens are revealed today. And Aaron, tell us about what's going on at RuPaul.
There is so much going on in the world of RuPaul, the world's first supermodel. So season 12 of RuPaul's Drag Race on VH1 is going to be premiering on Friday, February 28th on VH1 at 8 p.m. And it's going to explore 13 new queens, so 13 new contestants as they compete for the crown of RuPaul's next drag queen superstar. And a cash prize of $100,000. So I'm very excited for this. Obviously, you both know that I'm an avid watcher and fan of anything and everything that RuPaul does. But this is very exciting because, again, it's shown on a major network like VH1.
We discussed the other day the fact of the American dream, and I think that's exactly what RuPaul, not only from his own experience, has demonstrated, from going to nothing and rags to riches to finding glory and impacting the entire community. But that's what he presents with all of the queens that are in any season, whether it be a local season or in another country or even just a celebrity one, which is coming up as well. And I think that's part of the fun of RuPaul, is that he is there as a very typical American. He wants to help your dreams come true, and it happens to involve the LGBTQ community.
You know, one final thought before we move out of queuing up entertainment that I think is brilliant, and the genius of RuPaul and everybody connected with RuPaul. Yesterday, we reported on Q News Tonight, we were the only outlet in live news fashion to report that RuPaul was going to host Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me that with no notice, RuPaul's announcement of hosting Saturday Night Live, and the next day, the announcement of the Queens on season 12. Now, you could say that that is self-serving. I happen to say that is brilliant. And so congratulations to RuPaul and everybody associated with the show. And Aaron, you talk about what a super fan you are of RuPaul's Drag Race. Did you just throw down with Al about being a super fan of RuPaul's Drag Race?
Probably not to the extent of which perhaps you are, but I definitely appreciate it.
It sounds like we have a trivia contest coming up in the near future.
You know what? We might actually, seasons 1 through 6, I could probably get you.
I'll have to throw my hat in the ring for that.
Oh, those Gen Zers and millennials.
Can we just add to the fact that here on season 12 of Drag Race, Eureka O'Hara is not coming back?
But the real question is, Shangela coming back?
Right,
Finally
exactly.
win, as she
You just
deserves.
have to come out of the
She hosted the Gay VNs last year. She should come back this year.
All right, we move out of Queue Up Entertainment and we move into health, queuing up health. We report a new survey that shows in the United Kingdom, 71% of HIV has dropped in the UK, but don't expect that to happen in the United States. Napoleon, tell us about the news here.
That's right. Over 71% of cases that were there in 2012, 2,800 to be exact cases, were confirmed in the UK, has dropped to under 800 cases in the UK, meaning that over 2,000 of the cases have been in some way taken care of. It's gone down by 71%. Poorly stated, but still accurate information. And we experience that this won't happen in the U.S. in terms of HIV transmission because there have been a lot of, let's say, protocols by our current administration. Trump has fired his HIV commission without explanation. He has taken money from the HIV programs to pay for his parent and child migrant separation. He has listened and shut down the HIV fetal tissue research. And he also has stated that HIV is a pre-existing condition, which means that anyone that has contracted HIV has a harder time getting health insurance. So while we commend PrEP as well as being tested as a reason that people in the UK have had a 71% drop in the last 8 years in terms of HIV cases, we don't have that future coming here because of the current administration.
Any comment you want to make?
Well, you know, it's funny. We kind of touched on this a little bit last night with the United Kingdom, talking about Chick-fil-A, and the last Chick-fil-A is going by vice. And again, it's Conservative and Labour, for our viewers who aren't aware of that. Conservative and Labour parties, the two major political parties in Parliament in UK. Conservative and Labour, so left and right, they don't have the conversations and the bickering, the pettifogging, if you will, back and forth that we do in the United States about social issues, and especially socialized medicine. It's something that they agree on. How they fund it, that's a little bit differently, but they all agree that they should protect and expand in the National Healthcare Service, NHS.
What I just heard is, in some instances, government can work.
It can, when we work together.
You just have to go to the UK for it.
We move out of healthcare and queue up gay culture, and several news items tonight at Q News Tonight. The first is a gay writer has called the leather community deviant. Napoleon, tell us about what's going on there.
The Washington Examiner writer, Brad Palumbo, has succeeded at writing a viral article. It is an opinion article. He has stated that he's not happy with MAL, Mid-Atlantic Leather Convention, which is the second largest leather or kink convention in the United States, which has a lot of the conventions that are held in the world, second only to IML, International Mr. Leather. He has stated that homosexuals were wrongly maligned for centuries as perverts and deviants. The modern left-wing gay people seem determined to keep the public displays of debauchery that keep this stereotype alive. He stated that gay people as beings are as boring as everybody else, and that's how he believes that we will achieve equality, by stating that LGBTQ people are the same as everybody else by being as boring and sexually oppressed as the rest of society.
Any thoughts?
Pretty bored.
Yeah.
Well, it's an opinion article. I have many opinions about what his opinions are and his sexual frustrations as well.
In 20 seconds, tell us.
I believe that sexuality is a lens through which you see the world, and it is a part of your identity. And what I'm upset with in terms of Brad Palumbo is that he doesn't seem to have the awareness of himself, that being gay is not in itself an identity, but accepting who you truly are, which means that understanding your urges as a human, which includes sexual urges as well. Be safe.
Okay, we continue in queuing up gay culture by reporting tonight about NIKKIE tutorial being on Ellen about the trans outing recently. And we prepared this video package for you. Watch this.
I want to start the year off by finally revealing a part of my life that has made me who I am. I want to talk about a part of myself that makes me, me. I can't believe I'm saying this today to all of you, for the entire world to see. But damn, it feels good to finally do it. It is time to let go and be truly free. When I was younger, I was born in the wrong body, which means that I am transgender. Now, so surreal saying this. Filming this video is scary, but it feels so liberating and free.
So filming that video was scary, but living your truth can be so liberating. My skin just crawled when I said that. Total goosebumps. Yeah. My gosh. I love her. I love her. I've never seen any of her videos. I've never seen any of her work, but just looking at her face, she's just beautiful. She is absolutely gorgeous. So YouTuber NIKKIE Tutorials, as she's known, but NIKKIE Day Jager, recently has come out as transgender after being blackmailed by somebody anonymously, of course anonymously, online, saying that they know her past, and if she did not come out and give them the answers that they expected, they were going to come out for her. So she takes her story and she makes a video, and that video that our viewers just saw has been viewed over 32 million times on YouTube, even catching the eye of someone in our LGBT family, and that is Miss Ellen DeGeneres herself, who just had her on the Ellen DeGeneres show to talk about her story and how powerful it is living your truth.
We discussed this story last week, and this is an update to that story. And it's difficult. I know we're reporting news right now. It's difficult to not be overwhelmed with the emotion that some of these stories carry, either for the positive or to the negative. Because in stories like this, you see someone at such a level of self-acceptance that it helps other people accept who they are. And that's beauty. That's beautiful, and it makes you feel better. At least it makes me feel better about who I am. So I commend her for that, because
I think
contagious.
I think the most exciting thing about this story is outing is a really terrible thing. It's like bullying. It's a terrible thing. I love the fact that NIKKIE Tutorials basically takes that negative and turns all of those bullies on their ear. You do this, this is what's going to happen. Congratulations to the bully that did this, because it's been fantastic for NIKKIE Tutorials, and that's the part of the story that I love the most. Before we end Q News tonight, we frequently like to end with good news. And we're going to show you something that we think is very interesting. With the week that we've had, and this is the third week of Q News tonight, We've watched 2 weeks of lead up to the impeachment trial. We watched Iran attack Iraq and the Ramstein Air Base live on while we were on Q News Tonight, and we watched this week. So we needed an anecdote at Q News Tonight for good news. And what better way than a baby and ice cream? Watch this.
What a scoop for a 9-month-old. It was Blakely Rose Jernigan's first taste of ice cream and first taste of viral fame. The bug eyes and the grabby hands were the clinchers, typical for her Spitfire daughter, says Mom.
Yeah, she's very expressive. She makes the cutest little scrunchy smiles. She's so silly.
Famous worldwide now, adorable in any language. Get yourself someone who looks at you the way this baby looks at ice cream. To be exact,
a perfect blend of vanilla and chocolate ice cream with a caramel ribbon.
Baskin-Robbins proudly posted, "Too cute." Just think, this California girl could grow up to be vice president.
My name is Joe Biden and I love ice cream.
Or even president. Remember how, at the dessert course, President Trump gets 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream with his chocolate cream pie instead of the single scoop for everyone else?
Well, we thought it was a perfect way to end our week. This ends our 3rd week at Q News Tonight, and we encourage you, with impeachment and all of the news in the world, it has definitely been a week. We encourage you to go out and grab some ice cream, and somebody that likes it with you. We thank you very much for joining us. We remind you that we are definitely completely out of the closet and into the headlines. This is the world's first live daily gay evening news show, and we hope we are bringing you the kind of information that you're happy and want to hear and learn about. I thank my anchor partners, Aaron Darr and Napoleon Plays, and we're going to be back next week for another edition of Q News Tonight. Good night.